Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well out there. It's almost 10 o'clock, I think. And it is, hang on, let's see my thing. It's Monday the 23rd. Yeah, it's been quite a week. Okay, so the continuation of the motorhome. We are out of it, okay? This is, I tried doing a video sort of the day after, and we had been fixed and everything, but for some reason I did like a half an hour video, and for some reason it didn't work. It seemed to be working on my screen, but because it counted down or up or everything, but then when I went to play it back, it was nothing. The joys of working with computers sometimes. Anyway, yeah, so I'll tell you in a different video where we are right now, but here's what happened. We sat at the side of the road for 6 days. Yeah. It was getting a little bit nerve-wracking, because we had people harassing us going by. There was one fellow would drive by really fast. It wasn't a road you should be driving by really fast, especially not fast enough to rock our motorhome. Then he would go to work at like 6 in the morning and would rock our motorhome every morning. There was another fellow went by and he would beep his horn, blare his horn as he went by. And there was another fellow who rode a bicycle, and every time he would ride by past the dining room window, he would call into the dining room window, "You're not supposed to be parked here." Not one person bothered coming to the door and saying, "Do you need help? Are you okay?" Anything. This is not the Calgary that we moved away from, that's for sure. Because the Calgary we moved away from, somebody would have come to the door and said, "Hey, are you guys okay? We noticed that you're kind of stuck here. Is everything okay with you?" But no. Not anymore, not in today's world. It's full of a bunch of rude people that don't really give a damn about anybody else. But it was getting a little bit scary. And every time we talked to AMA, it was that they sort of shrugged their shoulders and there's nothing we can do, kind of. Finally, we had been there, it was last Wednesday. And we had been told by AMA that we weren't going to be getting out of there till Thursday or Friday. They had also told us that the reason that there were no Landau trailers at all anywhere was because of the G7. They had apparently confiscated basically all of them. And I don't know what the hell they were doing with them, but that's what we were told. That's what AMA told us. Whether it was the truth or not, who the heck knows, but anyway, yeah, so we were sitting there on Wednesday, and our door, our motorhome door, has that frosted plastic stuff that you put on the door, you glue on your windows. It lets in the light, but it prevents anybody from being able to see in or out. And I saw this orangey yellow bright, that it's kind of an orangish yellow bright color, going past the window and standing in the glass. I thought, oh, what now? And then the dog went up to the window in the front to see, because she heard them talking outside. Didn't bother coming and knocking on the door. No. They stand 6 feet away or more and stare at the motorhome. And then the voice says, "There's a dog in there." Yeah, there's a dog in here. Gary had just gone into the bathroom, so I had to kind of handle it. So I go to the door, and our door is, every now and then, it will stick on the bottom, and you have to kind of give it a little kick. Well, I didn't have any shoes on. I wasn't going to kick the door with my bare feet. Hurt my toe. No! So I'm trying to wiggle this door and get it to open, and it was not cooperating. If you're hearing beeping, Gary's trying to get our electricity, our generator going, and getting our electricity going, and it's the microwave. I know. That's in the next video. Anyway, yeah, so I'm calling out and I'm saying, I'll be there in a second. And I hear this voice, okay, you know. So finally Gary came out of the bathroom and I said, Gary, there's somebody out there, I can't get the door open. So I just stepped out of his way. He kicked the door open because he had shoes on and he went out. It's the bylaw people. You've been here longer than 72 hours. We're going to give you a $400 ticket. What? He's trying to explain to them why we've been here more than 72 hours. And, oh, well, we got to give you this ticket anyway. And it's like, we're going to get you towed. Good. That's what we were looking for. Yeah. So while he's talking to them, AAA towing people were on the way. Awesome, because they had been booked for the Wednesday, but then they had told that they couldn't do anything till Thursday or Friday, but they're on the way. So Gary says, well, hang on, I want you to talk to the bylaw people because they're standing right here and they're giving us a hard time. Oh, no problem. So the tow truck operator talks to the bylaw people and says maybe you should park behind them and make them safe. And so he's already on the way, so they couldn't ticket us because we were in major trouble, and we would have gone into court. I mean, I would have gone into court for that, just on principle. It's like, what the hell? We tell you that we're in trouble, we can't get towed, and you turn around and give us a $400 fine for being there? We can't move. Gary's coming in. Hang on, I'm going to pause. Alright, back. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, it was a second for you, but it was like minutes for me. So Gary came in and he had to get the internet. He had to get the Starlink. He's putting it out. He was getting the scooter to charge up because it wasn't charging. And he discovered that he had unhooked a wire a while back and hadn't remembered that he'd done that. So anyway, yeah, so okay, so we're sitting at the side of the road and the bylaw people are sitting behind us now with their blinkers on. And the tow truck guy arrived, and it's another one of these flatbed style. It wasn't the type that is the best for us. But he says, look, he says, I can do this. I have extra equipment, and I can do this. And he actually had a chain that he could chain us and pull us on, and it wasn't a big deal for him. So, I was inside still. And I was getting a little nervous because, you know, when he's monkeying around on his thing and he's got the thing going up and, you know, and I'm thinking, when do I get out of here? And because I can't jump down off of his trailer. That's an obvious. So, anyway, I'm watching out the window, and I was trying to get Gary's attention, but he was busy talking to the guy, and he couldn't hear me because there was noise out there, you know. And so finally, he comes to the door, and I said, when do we get out of here? Because Bree and I were inside. And I was panicked, so she was panicked. Oh, hang on, we got to pause again. Yeah, let's try this some more. Let's try this some more. Okay, so, anyway, he finally took me outside of the motorhome. He said, yeah, it's time for you and Bree to come out. And there was this kind of railing type of fence along, because we're in an industrial area, and there was buildings kind of along that side. And there was a parking lot, and then there was the building. And there was a sort of rail fence that was about waist height for me. So I went and leaned on that because it's hard for me to just stand for a long period because I run out of breath, because you breathe harder when you're standing up, or deeper when you're standing up. And if you're healthy and, you know, you don't even notice it. Like, most people don't notice their breathing unless you're doing exercise and then you notice, kind of things, or you're doing some sort of thing where breathing is part of it. But most people don't really notice their breathing unless you have like a COPD. Anyway, so I was leaning on this fence, and the fellow came kind of down. He had been way up by his truck, and then he came down toward the motorhome, and he was putting things in place. And I called out to him, and I said, "You're not going to break my $8,000 scooter that's hanging on the back, are you?" And he said, "What?" And I said, "It was my inheritance from my mom, and I assume you didn't break it." No, he said, "I'll take real good care of it." And he was kind of shocked that I would say anything about it, but it was a good way for me to kind of tell him that it's not something I can just replace because of the price. I mean, my mom was well looked after by the DVA. The DVA is the Department of Veterans Affairs in Canada. And she was well looked after them because she had been in the service when she was in her 20s. And then, like when she was in her early 20s, 21 I think was when she got out. And and so she had only been in just over 2 years, but she was really well looked after in her old age by them. And this was something that they bought her, was this very expensive scooter. There's nothing cheap about it. It's a beautiful scooter. We used to have a video of me on the scooter when we first got it, but when we lost everything on the channel and had to start over, we don't know where that video ended up. It kind of got lost in the ether. And I never did find it again. But yeah, so letting him know that it had value and there was no way we could replace it in that way made him a little more cautious with the whole thing, and he took a little more care putting things in and stuff. He was really, really good. He came over and he met Bree, and I had her service dog jacket on, and he said, "Oh," he says, "she's a service dog." He was petting her, right? And he says, "Oh, he's a service dog. I shouldn't be petting her." I said, "It's okay. We have tags when we don't want people petting her. She's in training, so it's okay." I said, "This is kind of a different day for her." I said, "We just put the jacket on her so that she is more obedient." Hang on, stopping again. So anyway, so he has a friend who trains service dogs, and she's lectured him many times on petting, I guess. But so he petted her and we chatted for a couple of seconds, and then he went back and he was putting the motorhome on. In the meantime, Gary called a cab, and so Gary had to help him, so the cab had to actually sit and wait for a few minutes, and while Gary helped, because he had to steer onto the trailer, onto the flatbed part, and up the sort of ramp and make sure that it was steered, which was hard because it was hard steering. Because when you lose the alternator on a system like ours with this serpentine thing, you also lose your power steering and your water pump, because they're all kind of connected. Brakes. So it was hard braking and hard steering, as well as no alternator. Anyway, so the guy got it loaded with Gary's help, and then we climbed into the cab and we went up to the alternator place where we were supposed to go, and let them know, Gary had let them know that we were coming. And so what they had done is put 3 vehicles in front of their place, so that when the time came, when the motorhome arrived, they would move these 3 vehicles and we would have a place to park, which was awesome. Then we had to worry about the money. The money supposedly coming from Alberta Health. What a fiasco that was becoming. The whole thing was just such a just a horrible week. Horrible. Trying to fight this and figure that, and and sitting there and not able. And Gary at one point had to go out and buy water because we were running low on water. We were running low on everything. I mean, and then it was cloudy a lot, so we weren't charging our batteries right up and that sort of thing. So we really had to be careful using our computers and using anything. So it was getting kind of boring as well. Pardon me. Because, you know, we'd have to sit for hours doing absolutely nothing but talking to each other or just sitting. We slept a lot. It was just like, let's just go to sleep and be done with it. But yeah, we got through it. We did get through it. They hauled the motorhome up. The fellow was awesome. I mean, you know, he hauled the motorhome up there, got it unloaded really good. I went inside and sat inside. There was nice chairs inside the alternator place, so I just went in with Bree and we just sat there and waited. It only cost us, it was actually, you know, reasonable for the length of distance we had to go. It was only $36 for the cab, and then Gary gave him a tip. Which was, you know, the guy was good. He didn't take us by back roads and try and rip us off, which was good. Anyway, then we got there, and we were sitting in there, and we were talking to them about this money, and I said, yeah, I said, it's like they owe us $1,000, and it's supposed to have gone into our account last week, and now it's not there, and I don't know what the hell is going on or where. And his wife had come out, and she was going to give us the password for their internet. And she says, well, who is it you're dealing with? And I said, Alberta Health. She said, oh, I get it. I understand completely. She said, when my mom was sick and I had to look after things, she said, I had to deal with them, and it was hell. She said, yeah, just trying to get things out of them and figure out what's what and everything. I said, well, apparently it goes from one department to another department to another department, and finally it gets into the department that's allowed to send the money out, and then it goes. So I said, hopefully it's here tomorrow. They said it might be, but it may not be here till Friday. She said, no problem. She gives us the password to their internet and let me, you know. Later on that night, because it hadn't been there earlier in the day, I was able to use, there was an internet close by where we were. We never did find out where they were, but thank you, people. But there was an internet that had an open guest thing, and we would be able to once in a while get on it. It was really hard getting on. Sometimes in the evening we could get on after. Some days was okay. And so yeah, so anyway, I was able to get onto their internet later in the evening, and the money was finally in. So then we could get fixed the next day. That afternoon, even before I knew the money was in, they had a fellow come into the motorhome, and he took out the old alternator and checked the serpentine belt and checked things over to make sure that everything was good and it was there, so that all could be used. And then he just kind of left, and then the next morning when they opened, Gary went in and said, we got the money, we can do this. And the guy came out and they put the new one in, and it was within 2 hours we were gone. We were on our way. Then we went down to Staples, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went to Staples. And what we wanted to do was find out, can Gary get an order there? Can he pick it? Because it was listed as an Amazon pickup place. And oh, they do things. Everything is on the bloody phones these days, and it's retarded. It is so stupid. You gotta have this app, you gotta have that app. We don't have data. We don't have apps. We don't do that. We know how dangerous they are. You want to use yours? More power to you. You don't get hacked. You wouldn't even know if you were hacked. You wouldn't know if somebody cloned your phone. You wouldn't have a clue. That's how it is. And we just don't take the chance. Ours are phones. We can get text messages. We don't get data. Somebody wants to send us a picture, we got email. Send it. You know, it's just ridiculous. But anyway, So, yeah, we found out, yes, they were a collection place, no problem. They didn't tell us about the app thing and all that stuff. So Gary ordered a generator. He had ordered one. He had ordered one before we even got stuck on the side of the road. He had ordered one. And it was going to be delivered to a UPS place. And Amazon Security canceled the order. It wasn't going to the same place as your last order. Well, our last order was kind of in Ontario. Yeah. Yeah, so they canceled the order rather than contacting him and saying, hey, this is kind of, is this really you kind of thing. No, they just canceled it. And then they made him change his password like 4 times. It was getting a little ridiculous. He finally phoned and he finally talked to a person that actually heard what he was saying and listened and got things straightened out so that he could actually make this order. But then we found out that this Staples down the street from where we were was actually a pickup place, which is good. So we had it sent there. Well, when it arrived, it arrived in like 2 days. When it arrived, we go over there, he goes in, then he finds out about this app, and it's like, app? No, we don't do apps. No. You got to get the number from the app, and it's like, no, we don't do that. So he phones Amazon again, and they're really confused because you know the app. I mean, just use the app, and they keep repeating this to him, and he keeps saying, I don't use data. I don't have an app. They don't get that you need to have data in order to download an app. And we just don't do it. Gary's just going out the door, so if you hear noise, it's him going out with the dog. Anyway, yeah, so we finally met the Amazon delivery guy in the parking lot, and he brought it over to the motorhome for us. He delivered it to our door-to-door service, It was good. And then we had, that was the generator. And then yesterday, we had to pick up the battery charger because we needed a battery charger. So we got the generator and the battery charger now. And then we came over to Grey Eagle Casino, which is where we're sitting right now. We're going to be here for a while. And we went down to their gas station. It's just down the hill from where we are. And we bought gas in a little... First we had to go and buy a little gas can. So he bought a 2.5 gallon one because a 5 gallon is too big for him. It's too heavy. When you think of the weight of gasoline, and he shouldn't be lifting that now. So yeah, so he got a 2.5 gallon, which is plenty. They don't take a lot of fuel at once, so 2.5 gallons will last us several days, running the generator pretty much all day. So yeah, so that's the story of the whole motorhome fiasco. We are, as I said, now at the Grey Eagle Casino. We're getting set up with the generator outside. Gary tried to get the slide to go out. It didn't want to yet. So I don't know, maybe this generator is not strong enough to slide the slide out. And we may not be able to use the slide. It may be just something we can't do. It would be nice, but if we can't, we can't. But he now has all our little minis, all our little Dash Mini and small appliances in here. The boxes are all over there by the door. And we'll be kind of getting those out and using them. Tomorrow we're going to have to go down. There's a shopping center close by here somewhere. I'm going to have to go down there and get a few groceries. I've got a prescription I need to get filled for one of the eye drops. Yeah, we have to, and then we can start cooking. So the first thing I want to use is my little crock pot. And I want to do a potato, cabbage, beef with gravy, and maybe some tomatoes in it, type of thing. And might get a carrot, just one carrot, slice it up. But yeah, I'm just going to buy, for the cabbage, I'm not going to buy a cabbage because that's too much for us. What I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a tiny bag of, the smallest bag of coleslaw I can find, and I'll buy that, and that'll work. I mean, I would just buy a container of coleslaw, except then I have to wash it, and I don't need to. And whatever's left over from the bag of coleslaw, I can make a coleslaw out of, and it'll be really yummy, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, so I want to get some potatoes and, you know, things, and make a nice casserole in the casserole dish, and just put it on and let it cook basically for the afternoon. I know that Gary wants to get printing on his 3D printer, but we've got a few things we need to do before he can do that. And I want to get working on some of the projects. I've got some stuff I need to do first. But I'm going to do more of that in the next video. The next video is going to be sort of an introduction video. And so I will get to that right away, right after this one. So I'm going to be dressed the same and look the same. Don't worry about it. It's just done on the same day within minutes. Alright, you take care of yourselves. I hope you enjoyed our little story of trauma. We always have trauma, you know. We should rename our site, but I really don't want to. Yeah, so I will talk to you in the next video. Love to you all. Bye.